Welcome to the Free Will Science and Religion podcast. I'm Chandler Klebs, and I'm here with Poffo Ortiz, wsdtime,
Yeah.
and Jessica Gillette.
Hey.
Okay.
That was a
Sorry,
that was-
it was a little down right now. Just something on my
Yeah,
mind.
yeah. See when WSD isn't feeling his usual self, he's like, yeah, instead of yeah.
I was gonna say his yeah is a little lackluster this time.
Yeah, I know, because people who have listened to us know about WSD's usual yeah. So anyway, we have some interesting topics that we want to bring up, and they're all kind of interrelated because this is free will related because whatever stance someone takes politically or religiously or anything else is based on their whole life history, all their experiences and their conditioning, not to mention the genetic factor, which is a common point that all of us determinists or incompatibilists make when explaining how there's no such thing as free will, and you can't blame somebody for believing or thinking differently than you because they can't help it. But at the same time,
I say people. Sorry, go ahead, Chen.
Yeah. What I was going to say though is So basically, people can't help but think differently than you, given that they've lived an entirely different life. Therefore, you can't blame them, but you can still have positive discussion and debate that's productive rather than hostile. Go ahead, Poffo.
Yeah, I was just gonna say. People are just a product of their environments. It's both nurture and nature, and it just comes down to the information that they've been exposed to. So, you can have a traditional, really avid hunter who loves and respects nature as much to the same degree that a pantheist would, and yet there's this cognitive dissonance there where yet they look at a deer and they see it as sport, or even they can respect the deer, but they still see it as food. They still see it as a food source, or somehow they justify it in their minds. That killing an animal, this could be like the mother of a baby doe or whatever. It's okay because this is the culture that they've been raised in. They've been inculcated. And then you have another person on the other hand. I wasn't raised as a hunter, but I was raised, around nature, and I've spent a lot of time outdoors. And I could never, shoot an animal. I could never even think about killing an animal, like killing an innocent animal for whatever reason, And growing up, I always had a problem with hunting. I always got upset. Same thing with like whaling, dog fights, bullfights. Anytime I saw anything like that as a kid, I got really emotional. I got really upset. So it's just, it's just how people are raised, and literally like the justifications that are in their minds and stuff like that. They're put there by by their parents, by the authority figures. Because children are just malleable, and they're a product of their environments, a product of how they're raised.
Yeah, and this is an important point, Poffo, because in the whole debate over veganism versus carnism, what far too often is missing is that people are hostile because they're basically blaming people for being conditioned and raised the way they were. Which, so many vegans, if they would just take a step back and look at their own life, they would realize that they were raised in a carnist culture. Almost everyone was raised in a whole meat, dairy, egg eating culture. And then at some point, they had this epiphany, this weird mental connection, or some type of weird spiritual experience like Monique did, something like that, where they realized that there was something not right about it, and then they made a change later in life.
On some level, they were just exposed in just the right way to the information. They were exposed, and they had a revelation. They made a realization in their minds and in their hearts, and that's what causes the shift. I was going to say, over in China, over in the Philippines. This it breaks my heart because I watch these videos. Dogs are literally gathered up, put in cages. They're slaughtered for the festival. They take a blowtorch to them while they're still alive. They're hanging them up. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And there's no empathy there. It's just business. And we look at it and we're like mortified. And yet you go to any factory farm and you go to any slaughterhouse and you see the exact same thing with pigs and chickens and cows. So what you have there is you've seen the memes, it's like different cultures, same evil, and it just shows that, like, you're like Jacques Fresco would say, we are just literally morality and stuff. It's not intrinsic. It's all based on environment. It's all based on how the child is raised, what we're exposed to, what we're actually taught is right and wrong. And of course, there are internal, sort of evolutionary, adaptational benefits to, like, living in small groups as social creatures as we are as primates, working together, getting along, like altruism and stuff like that. So it's both, internal and external, but so much of it, in terms of societal structure and how we interact with each other, is like environment and external. It's all about nurture.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a good point, Poffo, because yeah, people can point out how morality or ethics, how from a biological standpoint it evolved because there is a survival and reproduction advantage when people are not, torturing and killing each other, obviously. So there's an
Mm-hmm.
advantage biologically, but then there's also the different cultures and religions and politics that are fed into young people the whole time they're growing up, that shapes their morality. And one thing that's important to point out about this whole thing is that people try to say, oh, yeah, well, different people have different ideas about morality, therefore there is no morality, which is really kind of silly in a
Yeah,
sense, the way
moral
they
relativism. Yeah, it's moral relativism. I can't stand that. Or when they get so abstract and they say that there is no good or evil, blah blah blah. I deal with that a lot in the pantheist circles.
Oh, I know. See,
Um,
what's bizarre about that is we don't really do that with any other topic the way we do with morality. Like, it's really funny how people do this with morality, yet they don't do that with any other topic. Like,
well, yeah, morality is an abstract because it is internal. It is sort of it's almost a metaphysical concept. It's internal. That's why it's not really it comes from cause and effect and the consequences of our actions, but it is sort of an abstract, internal thing. That's why it's probably you're able to uh, you're able to kind of like be so subjective about it. Sorry, his
yeah.
dog.
But what's interesting about it is, for example, like another thing that would be abstract, and although I hate to use this example, I think this is a good example. Another example of something that would be subjective and different for each person would be sexuality, because there are all these different preferences of people being attracted to different genders or no genders at all or whatever. And sure, it's different and subjective and culturally and biologically conditioned, just like everything else through cause and effect. But we wouldn't go and say there's no such thing as sexuality
Right.
just because people disagree on who's the most attractive person or something stupid
Sure.
like that.
And so like biologically there is no biological imperative for homosexual relationships. It doesn't you're not reproducing, you're not like contributing to the to the species. Sort of, it is purely uh, an internal evolutionary, almost like a more, I would say it's a more human aspect, because it's not a biological imperative. It's coming from those issues of love and security and companionship and friendship, and so it goes back to what I've said before, that we're evolving in a completely different way now. We're doing things that has no evolutionary benefit in terms of biologically, physiologically, but yet in terms of consciousness, everything that we do now is about the evolution of our consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And see, here's the deal, is just the very fact that things do evolve or change over time, and since morality does change, means that it can improve. It can actually improve to where there's more equality between the genders, between the races, between the species.
Species. Yeah,
Yeah.
the species, I was going to say.
And see, this is what's
But
very important, because like, one problem is people don't take into consideration that people have a different cultural conditioning. And so then they, like, for example, some vegans will get mad at everyone for not just all going vegan all at once.
Right. So it goes right back to what I'm saying. And this is
Yeah.
what I wanted to address, that like literally you are not okay. Almost every difference when it comes to debates and conflicts in societal structures, in sort of in societal constructs, in government, within different schisms, different sects of religion, different philosophical groups. It all comes back to this person was exposed to this bit of information, and this person was exposed to a different, a different set of facts, and they're just both coming at it, from like those facts agreed in their mind with what they had experienced in their life, and there may have also been some kind of moral conviction that sort of that justified it and reinforced it, and it also is meeting a certain need, a certain desire. For example, if you're pro-life, if you're whatever political stance you take, it's because you're seeing certain deficiencies in society. You're seeing things that you're unhappy with, and then that moral position or that political position is addressing that need, that particular need, and it's giving a specific answer to it. And then and you could say the same thing on the other end. So every single person is just sort of reacting and responding. They're commenting based on the information they've received and based on what their needs and desires are for that particular issue or problem. See?
Yeah. Yeah, and see, here's the interesting thing about it is that I feel that veganism would actually be much more effective if communicated in a compassionate way, because when we come across as blaming and hostile and towards people, they take it wrong, and then they just get more rebellious,
And they tend to not want to listen to you.
Of course,
Exactly.
yeah. Pushes them the opposite way. So let's take this for example. Okay, vegans are for myself. I mean, we are continuously watching like animal cruelty videos. We're watching what goes on in factory farms. We're seeing it. We're reading the information. We're exposing ourselves to it. Okay, not everybody else is exposing themselves to this, and so we have these intense emotional reactions. It's a social justice movement. That was what I was going to say the other time, Chandler. I said veganism, the technical term. It's actually a social justice movement, and so we are responding with righteous indignation is what we're talking about, but it's being directed toward people who are just like you and me before we became vegan, who literally we didn't even think twice of where of what the animals go through in the processing before they become food for us. We don't even think about it. Like I've seen so many interviews and people are like, well, cows, they have to be milked or otherwise it's unhealthy for them. Yeah.
With me, it came to I don't know if I should have thought this way, but it felt like maybe hopefully I figured maybe they died a quick and painless death. But,
oh no, there's nothing quick and painless about it. I mean, they're electrocuted, their throats are slit. Many times they're boiled alive, because the stun guns don't work or whatever it is. I mean, I'm talking about cows, chickens, pigs, all of them. Whatever it is, it's all about cost efficiency. It's all about doing it in the cheapest way possible to produce the maximum amount of product. So the ethical considerations are not considered at all. I mean, we could have a personal talk with WSD since he's kind of on the fence about these things if you want, or we could just keep talking about philosophy.
I'm just in that area where I'm still trying to educate myself. I mean,
right. See, that's the point. See, WSD, if you watched Earthlings and you watched Cowspiracy and you watched Forks Over Knives and you got to know all the people that I know and the thousands of motivated, compassionate people there's such solidarity in the vegan movement. And I'm a member of like 15 to 20 different Facebook groups, and you expose yourself to all the information and whether it's dietary, the health aspects of it, the environmental consequences, the environmental benefits of it. If you just expose yourself to this information, within a month, you'll be thinking just like us. So it's not about like it's people coming together who are at different places, sort of in their journey, where some are just privy to more information than others. That's all it's about. And if you could recognize that, then I always say it's just about the dissemination of knowledge, of information.
Yeah, that's the truth, Poffo, because basically what it comes down to is, I would say that veganism is the effect of the education of what all is involved here. There's so many things. There's the ethics about causing pain or killing, which is where I focus on. But then there's also the health part. There's also the climate change aspect and what the methane does to the planet.
Absolutely.
So
greenhouse gases.
Yeah. So there's so many good documentaries.
Carbon dioxide. Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing, is there's so many good documentaries, and Poffo just mentioned 3 of them that I've actually seen all of those. And here's what's interesting is now while veganism is not necessarily part of the platform, you might say, of the co-hosts of the Free Will, Science, and Religion podcast or the Impersonal Opinion podcast, I tend to think that there are certain trends that we have a tendency towards because we're all relatively educated people, if you know what I'm saying. There has a tendency we tend to be not very religious, with a few exceptions. We tend to care greatly about the poor, the disadvantaged. We care about all sorts of things. A lot of us do care about animals, and so many of us have different solutions about how to reduce suffering to animals. Take, for example, Jamie Soden. He's been making a big deal about the whole synthetic meat thing recently,
right,
which I think is actually a good podcast all by itself. But what I'll say about that for now is that I do understand the good intentions behind it. I get the idea that basically growing a laboratory meat is a way to feed that to the carnivores who are too stubborn to just do the obvious thing, which is a plant-based diet. I mean, and so I get the intention, and I wish that movement well, honestly. I just find it rather sad that people have to go that route when we already have the solution available.
It's lack of education, and it's literally, you can say it in one statement, like, eating meat is unnecessary. Like, if you just could educate and teach people that it's completely unnecessary, that we don't have to derive our proteins from other animals, then you start exploring all the other options, and it becomes like a moot point. And it's like, okay, it's great for those who are in transition, and they struggle, and they have their lives are fast paced and whatever. And if you could sort of produce this stuff in mass, and it it eliminates factory farming, I mean, that's great. At the same time, what is that doing? I mean, like, we're still getting away from the greater point of education, is that we should not be viewing animals as food, period. Why do human beings, modern humans, still look at other animals as food? That's what makes no sense. So it's not actually resolving the problem, but I do support it because it might help people that are in transition, or it serves as an alternative. Obviously, I mean, there's just so much misinformation out there, and people are like, well, I mean, what do you eat? And I can't find any vegan food. And I'm like, you mean your grocery store doesn't have a produce section? I mean,
yeah, like, exactly. That's my reaction too.
When they say,
sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sometimes it doesn't have it.
When they say vegan, they're talking about the meat alternatives and all the they're talking about the sort of replacement products, or the alternatives that are that look and taste and smell just like our regular American diet. But what I say is, why aren't we just focusing on what real food is, what the human body is physiologically designed to eat? I mean, physiologically, we're herbivores, we're frugivores technically, and we're opportunistic omnivores. That the ideal thing for a primate, if you're just looking at a primate,
your audio's cutting out a little bit.
Our closest relative.
You're kind of cutting out.
What's that?
You were kind of cutting out.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you right now. But you were trying to say
all I was
something.
saying was that we're opportunistic. Sorry. Were you trying to say something?
Oh, I was just saying that you can repeat yourself and hopefully we'll catch it.
I was just saying that we're opportunistic omnivores, and like sort of biologically, physiologically, our closest relatives, the chimps and the bonobos, are basically herbivorous, and like they just eat 99% of their diet is just plant based, and occasionally eat insects. So that is actually physiologically what we're designed for, our bodies. Our intestinal tract is long, all these different things. Our canines are there, but they're really for defense. We're not built like as carnivores or omnivores at all. So people just need to be educated in these things, and once they're exposed to the right information, I wanted to say this earlier. You don't have to try to be a vegan. You don't even have to try. Listen to me very carefully. Once you're exposed to the information, it becomes intuitive. It becomes organic. It becomes natural. Like, it makes sense, and the motivation is there. And I say this all the time. Like, I don't try to convince people to be vegan. I just try and share information. I try to expose them to the information, and then their own consciences, their own human morality will take over, and that's how it works. I mean, you just need to expose people to the information. I don't get into these debates because I'm like, you literally can't think the way that I think. You can't do what I do until you can. You follow me? Until you're actually able. That gets into the free will thing, is that you're just not able until you have that input, that motivation, that impetus to do that.
Yeah, that's funny because, a couple years ago, I'll say maybe back 10 years ago, y'all wouldn't be able to talk to me. I wouldn't be as reasonable as I am now.
WSD is evolving. He's evolved.
Yeah, that's right.
That's cool.
Yeah. I was religious.
Oh boy, double whammy.
Exactly. Almost every one of us at some point was religious, and it's very interesting, how because we all have our own personal stories. But what's interesting about this whole thing is, we just need to share the information, which is what I do, basically, because once people have all the facts, my thing is that they will, once they have the information, go vegan unless they're psychopaths, basically.
Let's okay. So I've heard other vegans being accused of being, and I've been accused of being dogmatic, fanatical, extreme, judgmental, critical, blah 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 blah, all these different things. Again, I'm looking at animals being strung up and slaughtered. I'm looking at people abusing animals. Okay, I'm seeing and I'm reading the facts, and I have all the information in front of me. For example, that shows how a plant-based diet is absolutely 100% the most efficient kind of lifestyle to live in terms of health. And with a few B12 supplements, I take a spray every other day, and that's it. Like, literally, you can get everything you need: the calcium, proteins, essential amino acids, everything. Whether it's from algae, whether it's whatever your sources are, it's a complete myth. And so you're literally looking at the arguments, and you're seeing where people are coming from, and they're just misinformed. So there's really no conversation until they are exposed to that same information, because you're coming at it from a completely different perspective. And here's the point, really important: they're always just thinking about themselves. And it's not just that they're selfish people or they're self-centered. I mean, they are, but the point is, it's because they're only thinking about, this is my diet, this is what I have to cut back on, this is what I have to eliminate, this is how it's going to be this hard for me. Well, what are you even talking about? If you're thinking like that, then that has nothing to do with the real issue. Okay, the issue is, it's about the animals. It's about their suffering. It's about what they're going through. It's about the earth. It's about the planet. It's about the ecosystem, the environment. It's about the billions of the waste, of so much waste. It's about our human evolution, and how we're evolving morally and ethically, that we shouldn't be doing this anymore. The fact that you're still struggling with all these things, I'm not talking to you, WST. I'm saying just to people in general. If you're struggling with these things, it's because your focus is completely wrong. Your focus is on you. It's not about you. Veganism isn't about you. It's about the animals. And once you get that through your head, then you'll start to understand. And it's like, well, it's so difficult for me. Well, it's so, and I know you'll agree with me, Chandler. I'm like, okay, you're one organism on a planet occupied by billions, and you're concerned and you're doing something that's hurting the environment and hurting the ecosystem for all the other species combined, and yet you're talking about it's my culture, it's my tradition, it's too hard, I just like the taste of bacon. I like the taste of bacon. Let me tell you something. I'm a vegan. I liked the taste of bacon. Okay, it was sweet, and like I enjoyed that. Okay, I enjoyed meat. That has no bearing whatsoever on the fact that, see, now I have a connection. I make the connection, and I said this was an animal. This was a living, breathing, sentient being that its life was stolen from it for my sake, just for me to enjoy this taste. And so I weigh it out and I say, it's not worth it. It's absolutely not worth it. And then when I know what goes into it and I know what it's doing in my body, it just changes everything. Do you understand? So I can logically sit there and say, yeah, of course it tastes good, but that's not the issue. The issue is, if you had a pig in front of you, if you had a chicken in front of you, if you had a sensitive, beautiful calf in front of you, okay, would you take the knife and slit its throat? Would you do what we pay other people to do, every single day, just for the sake of your taste? If you couldn't do it yourself, then why should you pay someone else to do it? That's the point. They're not making the cognitive, emotional connection.
Yeah, see, Poffo, I've actually thought about this. I actually thought, and this is an interesting suggestion that I had, like, suppose that the sale of meat was banned, just as a thought experiment. Let's say that people killing animals themselves and hunting and killing animals themselves wasn't banned, but just the sale of meat was. What that would do under such a scenario is that would force people to come to the reality that if they want to eat meat, they have to do their killing themselves. And most people would not be willing to actually do the killing and the cleaning up of the poop and all that stuff that is required that they pay other people to do currently.
The slaughterhouses had glass walls. There would be everyone would be vegetarian. I mean, who said that?
It was one of the Beatles that said that.
Seriously. So I agree, absolutely agree. And there's another point here. 2 points. Okay, first of all, like, what it would do is, people will go into shock and they would rebel. First of all, it wouldn't stop the consumption of meat. It would make it just like prohibition. You would have this adverse effect where you make something illegal, you ban something, and then people just want to do it more, and then it'll become – that's the worst thing you could possibly do is ban it, because it'll actually cause people to react, the pendulum effect, you know what I mean? And they'll just go to the other extreme, and they'll crave it and they'll want it, and they'll be like fixated on that, on just what they can't have, because we always want what you can't have, The other thing is it would also put hunters in a position where people would start paying other hunters to procure their meat for them.
I understand your point. It would go undercover, basically. And which is interesting because while your point is completely valid, Poffo, I personally don't understand this whole psychology of people who are rebellious and just want to do something more because it's illegal, because I personally am not that way.
Let me address it for a second. But I do want to say, Chandler, but your point was also equally valid, because I know exactly what you're saying is that if people had to do the dirty work themselves, they wouldn't do it. It's because it's so convenient. It's because it's processed and it's brought to us. We see it as meat. We call it beef. We call it pork. We don't call it dead pig flesh. We don't call it, cow, a cow leg, cow hip, whatever. It's because there's a disconnection there. If you had to go out and source it yourself, of course everything would be absolutely different. So I agree with you, but it was just multiple points there. Okay, so what was the last thing you said? Just remind me.
Yeah, I was just basically saying that I have a tendency to be much more law and rule abiding. I'm not one of those people who does something more because it's illegal.
So there is a like a strain of humanity, and it's within humans. It's a tendency. I'm like this, actually. I'm actually very rebellious, and if you tell me not to do something, it makes me want to do it more. Like, I actually have that tendency, and it has to do with just like liberty and freedom. I really value my freedom. Like, I don't like restrictions. I don't like being told what to do. So there is this tendency within human nature, within some humans. Some humans have sort of that they're predisposed to it. Others, it's genetic makeup. So it's just different for everybody. But there is this trait that like we don't want to feel restricted. It's the wild animal in us, so to speak, you know. So that's like where it comes from. And so what person is telling you not to do could be like really good for you to not do, but you'll rebel and go the other way, you know, just because it's limiting, it's restrictive to you, and the human nature wants to be free, it wants to explore, it wants to do what it wants to do.
Yeah, that's
So
that's an
that's where it
interesting
comes
point because yeah, see, here's the thing about it is yeah, I mean, I personally find it odd because I'm not that way, and yet I do observe that other people are that way. They want to do the very thing they're told not to do, which is very strange. I mean, you know, but unfortunately, you never know which people are which way, which is why generally we should not tell people to do something or not to do it, but
from. And
instead
this is
expose
perfect.
them
Yeah.
to the information
Right.
about
Right.
if you do this, this is what happens to the animals, and here's what it's doing to your body, and here's what it's doing to the planet.
I was gonna say whether we realize it or not, we're actually talking about like the exact same issue. Yeah, it was a perfect segue because we're saying for example, I don't tell people to be vegan. I don't tell people to stop eating meat. I don't tell people to stop killing animals. I don't tell people what to do. I share information with them. I try to expose them to information. I try to educate them. That's it. And in the process of doing that, if they're willing, they themselves will make the right, proper moral decisions. You follow me?
Yeah.
So exactly what you just said. Yeah, I agree.
Completely agreed there, Poffo. Because see, this is one of the most important talks ever. Because basically, yeah, if people like, here's this interesting thing: is that now, while I understand that freedom, literal freedom, is an illusion in light of no free will and that everything is cause and effect. Other people, they still have a sense of freedom. So if you just give them the information, give them some books or some documentaries about this stuff, they feel like by weeding through that information themselves and by doing the research, they feel the sense of freedom, and they're like, get the sense that I am doing this, I am making an educated choice. See, that they have that mindset, and I know that that works for other people, even though I know philosophically and scientifically that it's bullshit. It really is.
I mean, we're talking about freedom to make choices, you know, and you can only make choices and decisions based on, you know, the light of information that you receive, you know, the amount of light you receive. And I agree. Like you keep bringing it back to the philosophical no free will. I agree. But as I've always said, Chandler, it doesn't matter to most of the population because what you just said.
See, what's interesting about it?
Yeah, what you just said is how they operate. The way most people operate is how you just described it.
Exactly, and that's because I do understand that other people operate that way, even though I don't operate that way because I'm weird. Like, I'm really strange, guys. Like, I operate under this whole paradigm of, there is no self, we're all the universe, and everything that I'm doing isn't my choice, but I'm doing it, and I feel all right about it.
I think it's just a more expanded, dare I say, enlightened perspective. You know, I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of other pantheists who feel the exact same way. So you're not alone. But let's see. I don't know. I want to give other people a chance to talk because I mean we could talk about this stuff forever.
Oh yeah, that's right. I mean, because obviously you and I we've talked. We have a tendency to go on, but yeah, we should hear more from Jessica and WSD. So, do you guys have anything to say?
Well, like I said, I'm still educating myself about all this, and these say I'm still trying to question how is being vegan cheap. It doesn't seem. Well, then again, the causes y'all talking about, I understand why, but that's the first thing people going to usually
okay. So
speak about when they yeah.
So WSD, I appreciate that you recognize the what's at stake, you know, and the moral reasons and ethical reasons for this. So okay, is it cost effective? I have a chart that shows like listed down. You go down the list and it's like bread, meat, vegetables, you know, whatever, different different animals and what the price range is and stuff like that. And it is absolutely like far more expensive to eat like a Western diet than to eat as a vegetarian or a vegan. What we're talking about, like, I don't know how people don't understand this, but it's literally fruits and vegetables. Okay, fruits and vegetables, rice and beans, pasta, bread, potatoes, nuts and seeds. Those are the cheapest foods that you can acquire. And it's just about preparation and, cooking them, steaming them, stir frying them, putting them together. Like that's all it is. I'd have to kind of gauge what your normal diet is, like what your daily sort of consumption is and what you consider to be food. And then we can kind of take it from there. And I can show you how there are alternatives to whatever it is you're eating right now. There's a vegan alternative, and whatever you're eating right now is probably not healthy for you, absolutely not healthy for the environment, and it's probably attained by through pain and suffering.
Let's start what I ate this week, and you're gonna frown upon this
first one.
If you want to do
this,
you're gonna frown upon this first one. You're gonna frown upon this first one, so don't judge me too much. I mean, it's safe to assume that the 2 hamburgers I had this week is out.
Well, what? Okay, for breakfast or for lunch or dinner or what? When did you eat these hamburgers?
Lunch.
Okay, was it a matter of convenience, like just a fast food place?
No, it's just a shopping, a supermarket where I work at.
Okay, so you bought like patties, frozen, what?
No, pre-cooked. They're already cooked.
What else did you eat with a hamburger?
What else I eat with that? With the hamburger, what was that? Fries?
Is it just a burger or just fries?
Just fries and maybe some cookies. That's it.
Wow. Okay, so you bought it at the grocery store, but it was already pre-cooked.
Yep.
Could you just buy some veggie burgers and then like cook them at home? Or if you're out, like, could you purchase like a wrap or some kind of sandwich that just doesn't have meat in it? I mean, and you have the same effect. See what I'm saying?
And the pizza's out, especially sausage and pepperoni pizza. But I did have salad, but I probably shouldn't have put chicken in it.
I mean, there's vegan pizzas, there's cheese alternatives. There's vegan pizza.
They don't exactly sell those.
Where you are,
WSD, well, like, what do they sell at like this store? Do they have a produce section at all, or?
Yeah,
it's a grocery store. It's got to have a produce section.
Yeah,
it's not like a 7-Eleven, right?
Yeah, I never really looked at it.
Yeah. See, that's the thing.
Go to the section. Where it's all green.
Yeah,
and it's green and it's pretty, and your eyes are attracted to it because that's how we evolved to plants evolved the colors that they have, and our eyes evolved the way they do so that we could spread their seeds. It was a symbiotic relationship with fruit. That's why fruit is so attractive to us and stuff. Go to the produce section and stock up on watermelon, oranges, apples, carrots,
bananas,
potatoes, bananas. Absolutely. Buy all this stuff and then just start cooking it at home. I mean, you get some sea salt, get some seasoning, some parsley, get some apple cider vinegar, olive oil.
The grocery store is where my job is. My job is like maybe about 5 miles from my house.
Oh,
so,
man.
So it's like a matter of convenience, like to just pick up what's there.
Yeah, because it's there.
I'm gonna send you some videos. You know what? We could spend a whole episode talking about this, but I'm gonna send you some videos, WSD, and it'll inform you of just basically how to shop. Like what to buy and everything, and because step by step, I mean, it'll just take too long. But all I was trying to really say was that there are alternatives to whatever it is you're eating. Flavor wise, there are vegan alternatives to all of those things.
Yeah. And another point that I would like to make though is that almost every fruit and vegetable, with a few exceptions, can be eaten without cooking it. People don't cook bananas, and they don't usually cook apples or oranges. Like what I tend to like.
Unless they cook at Marvel.
What?
Not Marvel. caramel. I meant to say.
Yeah, you
Oh
can cook
yeah,
it.
those kind.
You can cook
Yeah.
those things into certain recipes, but yeah, generally the whole foods you eat raw, and it's simple and it's easy and it's completely cost effective and it's convenient. But it's just about shifting your focus of what food is.
Yeah, here's a
Yeah.
great tip. If there's any nuts, if there's peanuts or cashews or almonds or anything like that, those obviously you don't have to cook, and yet they will give you some excellent energy. They're a
Sure.
great snack. They're my favorite, really.
Legumes, any beans, chickpeas. If I'm like low on energy, I eat a can of chickpeas. I just put like sea salt, parsley. That's it. I just eat a whole can of chickpeas.
Yeah, like
Like
like for example, at the Hy-Vee where I work, you can get like cans of black beans for 50 cents each. It's really beans are one of the cheapest foods ever, and there's several ways to go about it. Um, now canned beans are a convenience over, just beans in a bag that you have to soak and cook. Um, but the beans in the can, they're convenient because as long as you've got a can opener and then if you need to flavor it, like I tend to put ketchup on my beans because I'm weird that way, you know. But you can use anything. Anything you could just add a little salt or whatever that makes it.
yeah, I wanted to make the point that yeah, the taste is a big thing. Like we don't want to in any way um, convey the message that you're sacrificing on taste. Like I'm all about flavor. Like I don't eat anything that tastes gross. There's some vegan stuff I don't like, and there's some foods I don't like, but I only eat stuff that tastes good. This isn't about like cutting out like flavor and anything that's stuff that you've ever had like a roasted portobello? Like I slice up portobellos all the time, man. You can make a steak out of it. It's like it's delicious. It's juicy. Like we're not sacrificing taste or flavor or any of that stuff because
Yeah.
the flavor that you get in your food comes from the plant-based seasonings, the herbs and spices that you're adding to it. Because like meat itself is not it doesn't taste good until you season it, until you
That's a
salt the
very
hell out of
good
it.
point, Poffo, because yeah, meat by itself, if people put no seasoning, no flavoring at all on meat, it tastes really dull. So really, take what somebody can do, whatever they use to make their meat taste good, they can use that on the mushrooms, like you were just talking about, Poffo.
Worcestershire sauce. Oh my god, it's my favorite food, man. I like saute some spinach with garlic, like
Oh
balsamic
yeah.
vinegar, and then like mushrooms, portobello mushrooms with let's see, sea salt, Worcestershire, parsley, a few other things, and then it's like a steak. It's juicy. It's better than like a steak because it doesn't weigh you down. You don't feel full. You don't feel all heavy and sick afterwards.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
like that's. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, one thing that's important is condiments are actually pretty cheap. Ketchup and mustard and barbecue sauce are actually very cheap, considering the amount that you get, and you only need to put a little bit on your food to flavor it as much as you need, which is really nice, you know.
I I grew up eating. I mean, I grew up just eating a lot of fruits and vegetables and stuff. That's just my mom's Mediterranean and the way that she cooked and stuff. So I was exposed to all kinds of foods. So I generally tended to eat healthy anyway. They always had she always had a big bowl of salad. Everything was like fresh, and I actually don't eat that much salad anymore. But I mean, I like salad, but it's just because I eat so many vegetables that like I don't have that. I just eat whatever I feel like eating, honestly, like whatever my body's sort of craving. And it's so easy. And shopping at the grocery store, it's so easy, man. Like it saves so much time. And I'm not. This is like a like a ad campaign, like a promo
Oh,
for
I know.
veganism.
Well,
But
this is us getting this is what happens when I get high when I'm talking about food, because when I
yeah,
talk about food, there's something about talking about food that gets me ultra excited. And so one more thing I wanted to say about salads before we hear from Jessica, because she's hardly said anything. But what I wanted to say is, like for example, the produce section at my Hy-Vee sells these bags of triple washed. They're already triple washed. They're pre-washed, and they're these bags of salads. So for like $1.78, you can get this bag that's like a whole pound of different vegetables. Like you've got some lettuce, it's got some cabbage. Like they even have like the purple cabbage, which is called red cabbage. It's got carrots. It's got all this stuff in it. and it's already washed, so it's super convenient because all I do is when I take it home, I just basically dump it in a bowl. I can't dump the whole thing because it's so big that it takes up. I have to refill my bowl from the bag several times, and then I'll put something on it. I'll put some ketchup on it, or my favorite is this stuff. It's called Veganize, which is it's
Did
like
you just say that? Did you say you put ketchup on your salad?
Oh yeah, I'll put ketchup on my salad, but there is one thing that tastes better on salad than ketchup. It's this stuff called Veganize, and
Yeah, I know.
it's basically a
Actually,
soy-based.
Chandler, actually, it's Veganase.
Oh
Actually, that's how you
yes,
say it.
Veganase.
Veg,
Yeah,
Veganase.
it's Veganase. Yeah, I've been saying it wrong, but basically it's like a soy-based salad dressing type of a thing, because it tastes better than mayonnaise. Like my mom's tried it; she loves that stuff too. It's like, because I used to like the taste of mayonnaise, but then I completely just quit that when I went vegan. But then this stuff is
What are
so
y'all talking about now?
yeah, it's called Veganase, and it's this most
Just
amazing
a
stuff.
mayonnaise, like a mayonnaise alternative, and you can make whatever you would add. Whatever you would make, whatever you would add mayonnaise
Oh,
to.
I
You
was
can.
thinking Miracle Whip, but yeah.
It's like Miracle Whip, but obviously there's no eggs
Yeah,
or
because
anything.
technically that's the only thing is Miracle Whip and mayonnaise, it contains egg, and that's technically the only thing non-vegan about that. So as long as somebody finds a salad dressing or mayonnaise that doesn't have any dairy or eggs, it's technically vegan.
I mean, I make my own. You got some weird taste there, Chandler, but I make my own dressing. I use olive oil, apple cider vinegar, salt and pepper, a little agave syrup on top, and that's it. And I always add fruit and stuff, like add cranberries or dried fruit. But yeah, I guess the point here is like it's convenient, like those prepackaged salads that Chandler's talking about. It's like so easy and convenient. It's already washed because I actually hate preparing stuff. Like, so if it's already washed and everything, it's great. I could just cook it or I could just eat it raw. And like it's all packaged, it's all set up, like it's got the shredded carrots, got everything in it. So, but I also want to make the point that you don't just being vegan or vegetarian or whatever. It doesn't just mean that you're just eating salads. It means that you have literally cut out all animal products. So it's just you just have to see and understand that animals aren't food. That like food is like fruits and vegetables, rice and pasta and beans, and nuts and seeds. Like food is not like the pet chicken or the beautiful cute little piglet that's running around, or the incredibly sensitive cow that like has had its life cut short just for your taste, for your pleasure. So it's just about like a shift in consciousness. That's all it is, and it's really not hard, man. It's the hardest thing is dealing with the negativity, with so much. Vegans are much more sensitive, and because we're aware of what goes on every day, and just people that thoughtlessly are shoving dead animal carcasses in their mouths and completely disconnected from the source of their food. So
Yeah.
it's really more shift in consciousness.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to hear from Jessica because she's been listening to us here, but she hasn't said very much. So, what would you like to say, Jessica?
I really liked what you said in the beginning about politically looking at the issues from an unbiased perspective, not necessarily taking on the opinions of the previously stated opinions of a party, because we are a changing people, and I think that it's kind of intimidating to have so much aggression associated with politics, and if we were able to take more of a unbiased stance as far as politics are concerned in general, I think that it would be easier for us to feel the comfort necessary to get more involved. And it takes us all to be kind of on the same page in a civil, understanding fashion to get to where we really want. no matter what the issue is. So I really appreciated you saying that. This has been a really interesting episode because we've talked about veganism. And I was thinking maybe it would be nice for us to share a simple vegan recipe for the viewers, because it is an intimidating change for people to make, I've found.
And it's just got to be for the right reasons. It's just got to be for the right reasons, you know, and then you'll understand. Then it becomes like second nature.
It really does. It really does. I think that we cleanse our palate, you know, because we're addicted to fat and sugar, and we have a sense of normalcy when it comes to meat, you know, eating meat, growing up in America, and that's not necessarily, you know, a good thing to instill when it's bad for the environment. And
it's a horrible thing. It's terrible.
It's very sad. And for us to have a realistic viewpoint of our interaction with the world and the rest of, you know, the earthlings, these beautiful creatures that we know and love, I think it is good to kind of phase out meat, and it would be a good thing for our viewers to phase out meat and just go ahead and try veganism, and try it in a way that you enjoy, eating a protein-rich vegetarian diet, and preferably vegan, because studies do show that dairy milk isn't as good for you as some of the vegetable substitutes.
No way. It's terrible. It's terrible for you. And there's so many plant-based milks too that are available. Sorry, I was just saying there's so many plant-based milks that are available now too. There's no reason. And why are we still breastfeeding? Why are we drinking another animal's? We're the only species that drinks another animal's milk, you know, or it makes no sense. Like milk is for baby cows. And that you have to get that in your head, that cows are not just these milk producing machines that you know endlessly supply us with calcium, and the calcium we get from milk is absolutely detrimental. It actually robs the calcium from our bones. So the whole process, it's all spin, it's all propaganda, you know, by the meat and dairy industry. So you just got to educate yourself.
Yeah, and that's an important point, because, you know, there's so much money that goes into politics. There's so much money that goes into advertising that the rich industries who want to stay rich will spread misinformation. They are not opposed to lying for their own financial gain, which is why.
Do you remember remember the 50s and they had the cigarette that doctors recommend most, you know? Remember that? Unbelievable, right? And we look at it now, we're like, how stupid, how ignorant, you know? And yet the society bought it, you know, that they bought into it because what an appeal to authority, you know, like you see a doctor, it must be healthier for you. Why? Who the hell ever came up with the idea to inhale carbon monoxide in the first place was a good thing? It makes no sense.
Oh, I know. That's the thing about it.
Wait, do people actually do that?
What?
Inhale carbon monoxide.
Every time you smoke a cigarette.
No wonder I suffocate if I'm even around it, because I can't breathe if I'm.
The secondhand smoke is terrible for you. It's a carcinogen, and it causes cancer. It's terrible for the respiratory system, and why should we have to suffer, you know, for other people's stupid habits, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it's completely different when the Native Americans had, you know, smoked tobacco and the way that they did it. I don't want to say it was healthier. This isn't a naturalistic fallacy. I'm saying the way that it's mass produced, the way that it's done now, it's just a habit. It's addictive, habit forming. You know, we can talk about that forever too. I mean,
well, yeah.
You know,
but what's interesting about it is I happen to be one of the people who is hypersensitive to cigarette smoke. And what happens is if I'm in a room with somebody who's smoking, or even outside but I'm too close, my eyes start swelling up and turning red. I start suffocating.
You know what's funny? You know what's funny with me?
What?
Both my parents used to smoke.
That sucks.
Yeah, no.
Like around you, like when you're like a little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and like I say, I won't provide around me. I don't smoke myself because I see what it is, but at the same time, I'm like numb to it.
That's interesting. Yeah,
like
some people
it
affects differently.
I smell it. I won't like the smell. I'll go walk away from it. But if I'm in a room with it, it just won't irritate me. I just,
Yeah, I have asthma,
like
so
minor
any kind of
annoyance.
dust or especially smoke bothers me. Like I get sick because I have asthma and allergies. And my mom smoked when she was pregnant with me, and I was around it all the time. And we used to go to shows and stuff. And whenever I'd act at the haunted houses, I'd act in
Well,
like
the
the
Bible says something about
artificial.
smoke, but all right.
Yeah,
The,
see,
the art,
because what's bad is the negative reaction that I have around cigarettes could mean that I have some kind of asthma or allergies related to it, because it starts affecting me instantly. And if I wasn't able to get out, I literally would die if I was kept in a room with somebody smoking.
yeah, it's bad for you, definitely. I mean, they've advanced the laws so that you can't smoke near buildings now, and smoking is now illegal indoors in so many places and inside restaurants and in businesses and stuff. But so that's a trend. I mean, think about it, like how it was from 50 years ago. Just from 50 years ago to now, you see that how much more health conscious people are, and they're recognizing these things. So I believe, getting back to veganism and stuff, it's a matter of time. Like that's the direction we're moving, and it's not going to be an easy transition, but it's happening. I mean, human beings are going to evolve whether they want to or not. Otherwise, we're not going to make it. We're not going to survive as a species.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we need to be on the same page. And there was one other thing that I wanted to make sure that I mentioned while we're still doing this podcast, is it's the whole health focused vegan versus the ethical vegan, because there's
Sure.
such a huge difference. And I feel like because they both use the term vegan, that is
Yeah.
actually a problem because they are so different.
Well, let's get this straight. Let's get this straight right now. Veganism is not a diet. It's not a diet. It's a social ethical movement that literally recognizes animal rights and sees animal exploitation as unethical and detrimental to the environment. So the diet aspect is just a natural consequence of it. It's just like it's a manifestation of this ethical stance that you've taken, that you love and respect nature, as I would say, as a biopan. Life-centered philosophy recognizes that all life is sacred. So it makes no sense. So veganism is just a natural progression from that. But if you go into it saying, oh, this is good, I'll lose weight and this will help my skin and my complexion, and it'll keep me fit and I can do my modeling now. Well, that's completely, self-centered. That's all about you. That's not, You're not thinking about the animals. You're not thinking about the millions who are butchered and who are being castrated, who are being, branded, who are being tortured basically at all times, who are living in the battery cages and horrific conditions. You're not thinking about the real reason behind veganism. You're just thinking this might benefit me. This is a good. So it's not gonna stick if you can't if you don't do well with it. If you think that you have some kind of deficiency or something, or you're feeling weak, it's probably because you're not eating enough fruits and vegetables. But like it's not gonna be as enduring as someone who is doing it for the ethical reasons. You have to do it for the animals.
Yeah,
first.
I have to say, honestly, if somebody had tried to convert me to veganism by telling me that it was healthier for me, it would not have worked. That would not have been sufficient motivation, because sure, yes, it's true that a plant-based diet is better for your health than consuming meat, dairy, and eggs and all that. But that would not have been sufficient motivation, and here's the main reason why. Because people will say, well, yeah, but I don't care how long I live. I would rather eat this food that tastes good to me and live only 50 years rather than eat differently and live 100 years. So
the pleasure principle. Yeah, pleasure principle.
The pleasure principle makes it so that their taste buds will, just the cultural conditioning, the habit of it, they will not change. At least I would not have if it was just about health-based stuff. But the reason that I went vegan was for ethical concerns, because when I became aware of all the killing and rape and stuff that was going on, and because I wasn't self-focused, because I was focused on those others. That is,
you know what, you just brought up. I just realized something, Chandler. Like you just made me realized something really important. I'm going to try and articulate this. I don't know. I might stumble over my words, but I just realized that, like, when I was a Christian, one of the last books I read, Christian books I read, was called Why Christians Get Sick. And sort of on my spiritual journey, this was one of the last things I had really gotten to the point, and it was like I was thinking very holistically about everything, and I was it was so basic that this book, and it said, clean air, clean water, clean food, no pesticides, non-GMO, like taking care of the body, thinking like holistically is the way a Christian should be. You should take care of the temple, basically. And for a long time, I was like, I would just stock up on like vegetables, and I'd fill up the fridge, and then it would like, I would be busy or be doing something, everything would start rotting. It wouldn't, like I wouldn't be able to cook things in time or eat it in time. And I kind of, you get caught up in life, and then I lost that sort of motivation where I had that mentality that, that good health and taking care of my body was a big part of my Christianity. Now, several times over my life, I also had tried sort of different forms of dieting, different kinds of, trying to eat healthy and just cut out certain things and whatever. I had never really been able to stick with any of those. I'd never really been able to consistently maintain like a good, well-balanced, healthy diet until I became vegan, until I became vegetarian first and then vegan, because it was all about me. It was like it was something I had to do. I had to think this way. I had to remember, I had to count calories, had to think about the fats, I had to think about the cholesterol. Now it's like I just realized that it makes so much sense. This was the only thing that could have actually changed my diet, because my moral and ethical convictions were so strong, and my love and care and concern for animals and for the environment and for the planet that's what's actually motivating me now. That's the thing that actually motivates me now. And this is very important here. This is the point. Like, whenever I go out to eat at a restaurant, whenever I make food or whatever it was, if I was cooking, whatever, if I didn't enjoy my food, I would get really mad. Like if I go to a restaurant or something and I didn't like it, if it wasn't as good as I thought it would be, I would get frustrated, and I would keep buying food, or I'd buy something else, or I'd buy a dessert. I'd always want like my meal to be like just amazing. Okay. And since I've been vegan, I've lost that. Like, even if I don't fully enjoy something, it doesn't matter. I just like, well, I can eat again elsewhere. I can eat, later on, I can try this again. I've literally, I just realized something that I've like shifted so that like, I'm not as self-centered when it comes to my food and my dietary choices and, like what I put into my body. I'm just much more, it's hard to explain. I'm just much more like, my focus is just shifted. So it's not just about enjoying each and every meal, each time. It's that like I think now about where my food is coming from. I'm much more just conscious, and as a side effect, it makes you more health conscious. It makes you more sort of empathetic and not as not as focused on your pleasure and your satisfaction, your gratification. It's actually, you recognize as a vegan that you're part of a system, you're part of a whole, of a bigger picture where there's all these other forces and factors and other life forms that are involved. And as sort of with a regular Western diet, even as a Christian, I had never really grokked that. It never really stuck. So it's actually, it's a great point, and it's amazing that like it becomes a spiritual thing. I became a vegan because of my pantheism. It led to that, but being a vegan itself actually becomes like a spiritual sort of mind expanding thing that helps you see yourself as part of the whole instead of just an individual isolated, and it's all about you and your taste and your pleasure.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you mean, Poffo. That becoming less self-centered in that way, because one thing that I've noticed, and this is particularly when I was religious, is that I was all focused on whether I believed the right thing so that I didn't get sent to hell. It was all about my pleasure or pain. Everything was about me. And that faded away over a few years as I became focused on, well, what about the other people? I started focusing on, first I started noticing the other humans and thinking, well, wait a minute, there's billions of other people going to hell because they don't have the right religion, and all that. And so then I first started focusing on other humans, but then that eventually transferred to the non-human animals. until I ended up seeing them all as equal to me as well. So yeah.
Religion is very egocentric, man. It is so egocentric, and it is so petty and focused on the individual and all this stuff, and that's just not the reality of it, man. That's why I've been pushing. How many times have I said it? A biocentric ethic, biocentric philosophy, a biocentric attitude towards the world. Even a geocentric is healthier. I mean, sort of okay. It's bad in a scientific sense, right? Because we live in a heliocentric solar system, but geocentric, thinking about the Earth, instead of just egocentric, thinking about yourself. So there is that big change there.
Yeah.
That religions they go as far as you can go into the abstract, but then they're also completely petty and self-absorbed, and it makes it all about you, and it makes it impossible to actually think holistically about anything because the issues they address.
Yeah,
So I
and
agree.
you know what's interesting about this, although it's extremely unlikely that any Christians are going to be listening to this podcast, because I don't think they will be, I can't help but mention that this is rather contrary to what Jesus represents in Christianity, because there's like an egocentric attitude will not be consistent with loving your neighbor as yourself and the whole golden rule like that. It just won't be consistent with love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you and all that sort of stuff, because there's a lot of in there about focusing on others and loving others, and an egocentric person doesn't even do religion right. And yet, ironically, religious people are more egocentric. It baffles me.
There's so much I could say about this. I mean, yeah, the nature of Christianity, especially evangelical New Testament fundamentalist Christianity, which is a very apocalyptic, and it's all about the end times, and it's all about when Paul would say, I eat whatever is put in front of me, because I mean they were literally thinking that the world was going to end, in their lifetime, and that all that mattered was the kingdom of God. And so the focus was totally on the supernatural, on very much so on ethics and morality and righteousness and things like that, like social behavior. But at the same time, it was completely skewed so that it was all entrenched in the traditions of Judaism, and this concept of an afterlife, this concept of being translated and receiving a new body, and that the kingdom of God was going to come to earth and wipe out all the evil. There's going to be the great judgment. So we're talking about a completely different focus, and obviously it should have the good aspects, of kindness and compassion and empathy should have spilled over and into the area of how we treat other non-human animals. And it has in many circles. Actually, it has. I've talked to many Christians who are vegan, and they try to use the Bible to justify their veganism, which is absurd. But you can make the Bible say anything you want to say.
Well, yeah.
But in general, it hasn't. In general, New Testament Christianity, Judaism, Judeo-Christian mentality and thought is we are above the animals. God has put them here for our use, for us to use, and we're that we have souls, they don't have souls. There's this huge distinction there, and that's caused the earth and
that's
animal
very
kingdom suffer
interesting.
terribly.
And while I don't want to get too off topic, you just mentioned the most interesting thing there about people saying how like humans have souls and other animals don't, which I always found extremely weird. It's like based on the physical appearance of an animal, you then determine whether or not, based on whether they look human or not, whether they'll experience an afterlife after they die. That's got to be the most insane thing ever.
Well, it comes from, Chandler, because it comes from the fact that human beings are such highly evolved organisms that, we have such complex, forms of language. We have these complex societal structures. We are technologically advanced. We have this manipulative power. We can manipulate our environments. We have more influence, than any other species right now. So it appears that way. It looks like we're the chosen race, we're the chosen species, whatever. I mean, the Jews think they're the chosen race, but we're the chosen species, and because we are above on a certain level, but at the same time, I mean, no other species has caused as much harm and atrocity as human beings, and no other species is capable of the sort of worldwide disasters that we can, inflict upon, humans and non-human life. So it's like we have the greatest amount of influence, and we have the greatest sort of destructive capacity, but we also have the greatest healing capacity, because we have morality and ethics and art and philosophy and science and all these good things that help to advance human progress.
Yeah. Well, I know it's weird, and I understand, because I was a Christian. I understand that people teach a special thing, that humans are made in God's image and the other animals weren't. Yeah, there's a whole structure to it where they actually teach that God gave humans dominion over the other animals, and then of course they take that to mean that it's their right to abuse them. So yeah, I get where they're coming from. But as far as what you were just talking about humans having, seem to have some abilities that extend beyond what other animals can do, which is true, but I view that more as a thing about technological advances, which of course most of
Sure.
us had nothing to do with anyway. But truth is, most people are smart enough to drive a car but not build one. They can use a computer, they can point and click, type on a keyboard. They can't build a computer. I actually look at it as the majority of humans do not display more intelligence than bacteria. They don't.
Yeah, it's you can go either way on it. That the animals are more instinctual. They're more efficient at the way they. I say animals. We're all animals, but
Yeah,
I say
we all are.
non-human animals. Non-human animals they're more instinctual, so their reaction times are quicker. Like evolutionarily speaking, on a physical level, human beings are weak, and we're completely vulnerable to the elements. It's our big brains, it's our technology, it's our ability to use tools that have advanced us to such a high degree. What was I going to say? But of course, I got to inject some things. This is what I'm feeling compelled to do, though. That of course, animals have souls. All living things have souls. Everything that's alive, is its own soul. Literally, the soul is like the product of your experiences and your intelligence, your innate abilities, everything kind of combined to make you the individual, the unique manifestation of omnia that you are. And it's just that there is this separation, getting back to like the veganism thing, that you can look into a dog or a cat's eyes and you have a bond with them, and you're kind of like playing with them, and you're taking care of them. They're a part of your life, but yet you're disconnected from the pig or the cow or the chicken or the fish that you're eating, because they're not involved with you. But if you were involved with them, most decent human beings, most civil, intelligent people, if they spend enough time on a farm, if they spend enough time around animals, they would develop the same bond. And they would see even reptiles, man, can have this incredible relationship with humans, that you think that the reptile brain doesn't have that capacity for those higher emotions, but they do. There's these giant monitor lizards that act like dogs, and they come running up to people and they pet them and they sleep with them, like not in a gross way, but you know what I mean. They sleep like alongside them, and they're completely.
I know what you meant, Poffo.
I just wanted to clarify, but like they treat their lizards, their reptiles, even snakes and stuff, as family pets, and they're completely docile. And if they're raised from an early age, they're not vicious. That predatory instinct is suppressed. So what you just have is a disconnection from nature. Okay, you have a disconnection from the life essence that is imbued in all things. And once you understand and recognize that, like, we're made in God's image, well, all of life is made in God's image, because life is God. Like, all of the animal kingdom is made in God's image, because animals are God, because everything is God, because nature is God. So, to the whatever advanced species on another planet that's another animal that's probably struggling with the same issues that we've had. They're probably thinking whatever they look like. I mean, just pick something like they're just salamanders that have evolved to walk upright and they can build computers now, right? They're saying, oh, the great salamander in the sky, God, we're made in God's image. We look just like God. Like it's that you have to bypass.
The great salamander in the sky.
Yeah, you have to move beyond that ego-driven mindset that that you're so perfect and special and whatever. Like we are because of how the level we've advanced to. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that my cat, the dog, the shrimp, the hamster, whatever, in time, given the right circumstances, would not evolve to become the dominant species on that planet. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly.
Is that all life has this potential, this capacity to grow and shift and evolve and eventually develop morality and ethics and can develop and evolve to the level that we have in terms of our influence on the planet.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, Poffo. See, I completely agree there because we all are life, it has that potential. Given enough time, any species could end up doing the same things that humans have done. They could have written and spoken language. It's, having a salamander that ends up inventing computers and cars just like humans do. That's not a far-fetched idea. It's really not.
I absolutely believe that, like in the next galaxy over, that exists. Something like that exists.
I do too. I seriously think it could happen. Similarly, like I know this is gonna sound weird, but to some people, but you'll get this, Poffo. I really don't see what's wrong with a horse having wings. I don't see what's wrong with that idea, and it may actually happen.
Back to unicorns.
See, there's absolutely no logical impossibility.
Let's say it like this. Let's say it like this, Chan. I'm staring at your icon right now with the checkered unicorn.
Yeah, that's right.
let's say it like this, okay? Because of the way that horses evolved on this planet, as quadrupeds, as the mammals that they are, in the specific situations that led, through natural selection and genetic distribution, what led to them becoming horses, like a similar organism, a similar animal could evolve on another planet, another galaxy, another solar system, another star system, that is able to traverse the skies. Because of how it evolved. It wouldn't be a horse, it wouldn't be a unicorn, it would look completely different. But there's absolutely no reason why we shouldn't think that something that's large like that maybe the atmosphere is different there, and it's the gravity works differently, like that they're able to fly and they're able to do the things that they do. So everything you could ever possibly imagine already exists on some level.
Right.
I mean, the unicorn thing or the Pegasus is really what you're talking about.
That's the Pegasus.
Pegasus flies. It's not really, in terms of physics, doesn't really make sense because the bodies aren't designed that way. They don't really have that breastbone that a bird, would have to be able to. And the wingspan would be huge.
Here's what my point.
That's just the biologist in me talking, though.
I know. But what I'm saying is, like, for example, weren't there flying dinosaurs, right?
Sure, the pterosaurs.
Yeah, like my thought is that it's entirely possible for some sort of animal, even if it's a fairly large animal, with the right evolved structures, you could have a very large flying animal.
I mean, condors are huge. I mean, like, the pterosaurs were like, they were more like gliders, though. They didn't actually really like sort of flap the way birds do, and they didn't have.
I heard they had their wingspan of a small plane or something like that.
Yeah, birds have a hollow. Their bones are sort of hollow, and they're lightweight, and their physiology is totally different.
They're basically made to be aerodynamic.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. The gliders, the reptiles that glide. There's certain reptiles that have like a wing,
a wing flap,
like a wing foil that they can fly, and then you have flying squirrels and stuff like that. So, but basically anything that you could possibly think of that you can imagine. It's possible for it to evolve in that way. So, I mean, possibilities are endless. But let's bring it back to the point that life itself is sacred. It is valuable because it has this penchant toward growth and change and adaptation. Like it is incredibly precious, and we should treat all living things with love and kindness and respect. And if we cared for those pigs or those cows or those sheep or chicken or whatever, even the fish that are grown in hatcheries and stuff, if we were around them all the time, most decent people would not be able to slaughter them. They would not be able to carry it out. And so we just need, the exposure to more undercover footage, more videos, more information, just the insemination of knowledge to spread this kind of awareness. Because and this is why I disagree with urban life. Urban life in the city is just so detached from the natural environment, from how human beings, I believe, like should be living in cohesion with the ecosystem, in harmony with nature. Because we're in these concrete walls and metal and steel all around us, what we've built for ourselves is just this like a prison where we don't see. We're getting the food and the resources and the everything's being shipped in, and we just view everything as a commodity, and it's just propelling us, to continue getting further and further disconnected from our source, from the earth, from nature,
and what
from
you were
ourselves.
saying earlier about, of course animals have souls. Like when you're talking about soul, you're talking about, like the life essence. You're just talking about that we're all, these life forms, and we're all part of this.
Well, yeah, that, but also I meant like the individual personality of that organism. That's the soul to me is synonymous with the individual personality, sort of their makeup, their hereditary makeup, combined with the environmental factors that make them the unique expression of life that they are. That's what I mean.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The way they are, which would be their personality, which is of course by
their
all their
individual
memories. Well, by that definition, of course, all animals have a soul. So, see, and I hope that Monique listens to this, because sometimes, she brings up the whole soul thing, and what it comes down to is it's all a definitional thing. By the definition of soul that you're giving, Poffo, of course I believe in a soul. But the reason I often tell people I don't believe in a soul is because they mean it in the context of a thing that goes to heaven or hell after the person
we're not talking about a disembodied essence, a disembodied life force or spirit that survives that survives the physical death of the body. That's not what we're talking about. Like the concept of the soul came from the Egyptians. It was the Ba. There was two aspects to the soul, I believe, and it came from the Egyptians. The immortality of the soul, that concept got sort of passed on to the Jews and the Christians, and it's the idea of the continuation of the individual in some disembodied form, and I don't believe that exists at all. I mean, there's no evidence. There's no evidence.
And so,
but the soul exists as long as a living organism, as long as an animal is alive, the soul exists. When an animal dies, the soul ceases to be, because without the the bodily functions, to that amalgamation of the combination of the senses combined with the memories, like you were saying, combined with the individual thoughts, of that particular organism and their genetic makeup and their experiential makeup. That's what makes the soul.
Yeah, exactly. See, I hope that clears up Monique's confusion about this, because it all comes down to a matter of definitions. Because when we say that we believe or don't believe in a soul or God or whatever, it does come down to definitions. And so I think that's important to come at, because people, they just say this stuff without thinking about it. So when somebody says, like when the Christians say that non-human animals don't have souls, what they mean is they're not necessarily even saying that other animals don't have a personality, but they're saying that humans go to an afterlife and those other animals don't. That's what they mean.
I said this when I was like 16 years old. Okay, like, I don't want to go to a heaven where there's no animals. My heaven is animals. Like that would be my heaven, is all of the animals of the kingdom of earth, like all surrounding me, and being able to communicate with them, and just like rolling around and frolicking and playing, and just being in this natural sort of habitat of you know, of a perfect symbiotic relationship with nature, that is heaven for me. I wouldn't want to go to heaven if say, for example, my dog wasn't there, or one of my cats, or you know, all the animals the hurt and sick and injured animals that I've rescued over the years. Like that's my idea of heaven, is them all being there,
Yeah.
you know, being with me. So it doesn't even compute with me to think that way. And I'll debate anybody that's otherwise.
I know. Like what?
Yeah, exactly. I would like to see Gracie in heaven.
Yeah, like think about it. Most of us, like, we all have had pets that we love, you know? Jessica's had a rabbit. Jamie and David have had like their cats. And WSD, did you have a cat or?
Yeah, I had a cat.
Yeah, a lot of people have had dogs or cats or rabbits. You know, I had a hamster. And the thought that there's no other animals in an afterlife, and we're just stuck with only a bunch of humans who are only there because they believe a certain religion. That to me is hell. Honestly, that to me is hell. Like,
I don't even like most people, man. Like,
I know.
People are fucking pricks. I'm sorry.
I'd rather be alone. I'd rather be in the forest. I'd rather be around animals. I'd rather be around, you know, these under-evolved, you know, primitive species that to me, I look at them and I just see like the reflections of God. I see God in my cat's eyes, because he's this beautiful, you know, animated little character that, like, how can I not, you know, love that? How can I not love him? And I feel the same way toward all animals, even humans. It's just a lot harder, a lot more difficult with humans.
Yeah, it's like
it's hard to do with humans. And it's also hard for me to do with certain insects. Because I had a couple bad experiences with insects. One of the bastards stung me. The fucking hornets, that shit hurt it too.
I have a suggestion for you.
We talked about the roaches. Oh yeah, bed bugs.
We've talked about this issue before, but I have a suggestion for you. Start studying entomology, and start studying insects, and like look at photos and stuff of insects under a microscope, and like watch documentaries like that are all about like the insect world and how beautiful and fascinating and complex they are.
How important they are to the ecosystem.
No, forget that's just head knowledge, man. I want you to kind of get personal and really like look at the photos and like watch the documentaries and videos. Just do that for a few days, and like look at all the pictures of insects under a microscope, and I guarantee you your perspective will change. It's all about
okay, you gotta give me time.
Yeah.
You gotta give me time if I watch it.
Yeah, like, and here's what I wanted to say is, you know, you guys already know about me that my idea of heaven is Planet of the Horses, basically. like this would be awesome. Like, let's suppose that I turn into a horse, and then there's this planet where all these horses go when they die. And so that's where the horses are. And so then the challenge is you guys got to find me. So it's like playing Where's Waldo, except it's find out which horse is Chandler.
Chandler, you gotta start a new podcast and just call it Unicorns. Just start a new podcast, man, and just be like, we're only unicorn discussion. That's what we're gonna talk about. I was at the store yesterday. I was at Target, and me and my girlfriend were walking by, and we had to get a toy. We're going to this show, and it was like a raffle for kids, and you have to get a toy for like impoverished children, for the needy, and then they put your name and whatever, and you can win something. So I got like a teddy bear, and then we were looking for something else earlier, and we went by the My Little Pony aisle, and my girlfriend was like, "Why don't you get one of those for Chandler and then send it to him?" And I just kept walking. I couldn't really.
Yeah,
I couldn't get into it, but you got this thing with unicorns. But hey, I mean, whatever. It's there are worse fetishes out there, I suppose.
Oh, I know, man. But I have to say one thing now. Okay, there's two competing Facebook groups. There's the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and there's the Church of the Invisible Pink Unicorn. And now we already know that the Flying Spaghetti Monster became a legally recognized religion, and I think it was Sweden or somewhere.
Yeah, they're doing that to just kind of stick it to the theists.
I would love for that to happen with the Church of the Invisible Pink Unicorn. Like, seriously, man, they could really take that to the extreme. There's even a website that, seriously, I looked up on the internet things about the Invisible Pink Unicorn. There is a website with the unicorn scriptures, okay? And it looks it's like Middle English, like the King James Bible, and like seriously, man, they've actually have like this Bible verses of the Invisible Pink Unicorn.
It's like Tolkien's like Lord of the Unicorns.
Yeah,
like his universe.
I mean, seriously, man,
when you whole language invented.
Yeah,
Chandler, I honestly, I won't pretend to understand, but I mean, like, I don't know how to follow up with that, but I will say, I remember, okay, Legend was like one of my all-time favorite movies growing up, okay, and what the unicorns represented in that was light and love and purity, and I remember The Last Unicorn was that cartoon I saw as a kid, and I just have fond memories of that. I saw it in the theater, and there was like this bull that drives them all into the ocean, and it was just this magical moment. I don't want to give it away, but if you haven't seen it yet, The Last Unicorn, it was an animated film. But so I have those sort of like associations with unicorns. But I probably, if I hadn't met you, I probably wouldn't think about unicorns like ever. Like,
yeah, well,
I could go 5 years and I probably wouldn't even think about a unicorn. So.
Yeah,
I just like where it stands with me, but I mean, we all have different tastes and interests. I went to a show last night where I dressed up like a demon. I mean, I went to the Krampstein show, and these guys all like, the folklore, the Austrian folklore of Krampus. It's a Christmas tradition that we always do, and I can show you some photos if you want. But like that's like my thing is,
hey,
we're into all this mythology. Yeah, what's up?
Krampus is scary.
Yeah, I love aesthetics. I mean, I love dressing up, and it was like I was one of the only ones there. I was the only one there wearing a mask. Actually, we've done like the Krampus ball, and we've done the Krampus walk, and there was like a play, and I just love like folklore and that just that whole aesthetic of sort of a different aspect of Christmas tradition that's kind of coming back into popularity now. My point is, you guys probably have no interest in that at all, and it's probably weird and scary to you, but like that's me. I was a makeup artist and I love horror movies, so
yeah,
we all have our different
we have our different fantasies, our things that we like. And for example, Jamie, he really likes dragons. That's kind of his thing. We've talked about that before, but we didn't go there because we ended up talking about the vegan thing, but I would like to do another episode where we talk about why people think and feel the way they do, based on the information that they've received, the information they've been exposed to, because that's everything we've been talking about. I've kind of had it in the back of my mind. That's like what we've been talking about is we've all been exposed to different information, different experiences, and that's what determines, like who we are. So, and tie it all in. I mean, like I think that could be a whole separate show just in and of itself. That's just about like the differences, because like any person, like I said in the beginning, any person that liberal, Democrat, Christian, atheist, vegan, meat eater, whatever it is, like it is absolutely predicated on the information that they've been exposed to and how their minds and how their hearts have sort of absorbed that information and like where their focus is. So you could literally talk to any person, and you don't ever have to really disagree with them. You can just acknowledge and say, I know that you think and feel the way you do because you have certain motivations. And, barring sort of like the internal motivations of people that might be lying to themselves and defense mechanisms and things like that. Basically, if people are honest, it's just because of the information they've received. So you don't really have to disagree. You could disagree with their views, but you don't have to disagree with the person. You could say, I know why you think the way you think. And if I was in the exact same situation, if I had the same set of experiences, I would think exactly the same way. So I don't hold it against you. Here, like here's a book, here's a documentary. Like let me expose you to some of the information that I've been exposed to, and then let's see where it takes you, from there. And that is the way you resolve, discussions between nations, and you avoid war and conflict, and even in relationships, like whether your partner, your girlfriend, your wife, husband, whatever, like that's how you find that commonality. That's how you behave, in a civil, rational, logical way. Is you just recognize where the person's coming from. You put yourself in their shoes. That's what it's all about. That's how you develop
understanding.
I mean, yeah, Poffo, I couldn't have said it any better, and I can't think of a better note to end this episode on, because it is time for me to get going, because this always happens.
WSD, you feel better now? Can we get a yeah from you? A strong yeah?
Oh, a little bit. It just something was weighing on my head earlier.
You know what? I gotta say something.
I
gotta say something. In the very beginning of the show, I actually wanted to talk about whatever it was that was bothering him, but we got away from it, because when he said that, like in the very beginning, my first inclination was like, well, let's talk about what's bothering you, man. But I didn't know if it was too personal, so we could stick around after.
It is kind of personal.
Well, let's talk after we end the broadcast, and we'll talk
right.
about it. Because I don't feel right just leaving you if you're bummed out about something, you got something going on. It's
and you guys can talk about that even though I'll have to go to bed. So, but yeah, I think you just said a great thing there at the end, Poffo. I mean, because I just want to say, realizing that people have these different experiences and their experiences have made them what they are and think the way they are. That's what the Free Will Science Religion podcast is about. The whole,
if you titled it that, if you explained it and described it in that way, you would reach more people. Instead of saying you don't have a free will, if you described it and explained it just in a few words, like you just did, people would be much more open and receptive to it. That's always been my point with you guys.
Yeah.
So
that's why we need people like you, as part of our projects, Poffo, because you have a way. Different people have different gifts of communicating things in more effective ways, and I want to communicate this message in whichever way is the most effective that does help people's lives. That's the point. So yeah. So absolutely, we're going to talk more about that in future episodes. But for now, I got to say thank you for listening to the Free Will Science Religion podcast, and we've been talking about how we're conditioned to be the way we are, and we talked a lot about veganism and a lot of myths that go into that. And of course, I had to mention horses and unicorns and all that, But right. if you had my experiences in genetics, you would be into unicorns too, and you can't deny that.
He was abducted by unicorns at some point and he's fixated on it now. Had a unicorn vision.
Yeah. How about we'll just end the broadcast after a final yeah from WSD.
Okay, I'll try. Yeah.